just because as I was grading on Thursday, now remember Friday was the quiz, and it was on easier foundational problems, not the tricky ones. So we didn't grade on Friday. I was like, no. Let's just do the basics. We did a basic example problem to help you for the quiz. The quiz was on the basics, but there were quite a few of you that were like, I didn't know how to, like all around the room. You guys had ones on 8.5A and B homeworks that you got stuck on. So I wanted to let you see the even answers, and I also wanted to give you a chance for all of us all together. The quiz is now over as of Friday, except for those of you that still need to take it. That's why I want you coming in during lunch or after school or period 7 to take that quiz, because then we can review real quick. If I were to give it to you right now, most of you wouldn't remember and you would do pretty poorly on it. But the kids that took it on Friday, you guys actually did really well. Most of you. As long as you followed the procedures that we did in our worksheets, and as long as you were paying attention as we were doing the example in class, and as long as you were doing homework carefully, you guys were like in a rhythm. And so even though you might have made mistakes, you still got a lot of the points, which was really, really good. But let's take a chance right now. I have my section 8.5 open and ready. I know there were a few that were weird, were kind of out there, and we do have a test coming. So before we finish section 9.2, since section 9.2 says use the graphs you've been learning to do, okay, fine. What questions do you have in 8.5? You guys can be grading A. If you don't already know whether or not you got the evens right, you can be grading A, which had you identify, I think, the x-intercepts and the axis of symmetry. The x-intercepts, I think, in this axis of symmetry. I would have had you guys put comma 0, comma 0. You can check the graph on number 8. Some of you use the worksheet for that. Some of you just put it on your paper. That's okay. With domain and with range. A lot of you guys were rocking the domain parts. At least you got 2 points out of 10. At least you got a 20%. If you remembered it was all real numbers, it always is. For parabolas, going up or down. And then above, greater than or equal to the minimum. And then number 10. Why is number 10 less than or equal to for range, whereas number 8 was greater than or equal to? Why is number 10 less than or equal to? Oh, come on, some of you guys rocked this on your quiz on Friday. It's not totally gone, is it? Why would this graph be less than or equal to instead of greater than or equal to? What's different? Okay, I like the going down. Yeah, going down, or it's below the vertex. And just wants to pay attention. Don't distract Everest, please. Going down, you can explain to me later. Going below, and someone said negative. Whoa, I like it as long as you know what they meant. What's negative? The beginning, which means it flips down, right? Positive beginning flips up, negative beginning flips down. Yeah. And then I think most of you guys had all the multiple choice answers, whether or not you totally knew them. But I think maybe you were okay on F and B and E. I'm going to let you guys grade part B in just a second. There were only 2 evens, 38 and 40, but those of you guys that got stuck, or those of you guys that were like, I didn't know how to do on section 8.5A, was there anything you wanted to ask me? A couple of you left 1 or 2 blank, or you couldn't finish it. Anything you want to ask me on 8.5A? We're good? You sure? Yeah. Okay, maybe the questions were on 8.5B. So 8.5B, we have 38 and 40. 8.5B, we have 38 and 40. Hey, for those of you guys who were absent on Friday, don't worry. I told the kids here on Friday the same clue. Wasn't the quiz basically just one of these and one of these? With lots of blanks to fill in, including a graph? Those of you that missed the quiz on Friday. Wasn't the quiz basically one of these and one of these? Yeah. And you had to fill in a lot of blanks, like the 8.5A worksheet. If you want to have something to study, my one I forgot the quiz. Or absent the quiz, I should say. That's what to study. This is 38, this is 40. Anything that you guys left blank or that you got stuck on 8.5B that you want me to look at? Come on, some of you have actual problems that you skipped and you're like, I didn't know how to do this. There were like at least like 8 to 10 of you. Andrew? 38. Anything else? Some of them were odds too. All right, I offered, I tried. We're just going to look at number 38, and then we'll be done. And the nice thing is, for those of you that were gone on Friday, we did an example like number 38, meaning one of the factored ones, right before the quiz. And so in a way, if you take the quiz today, you kind of get a practice problem like Friday's, everybody who was here on Friday got right before their quiz. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did with them, except we need all those questions. Where are all those questions? All those blanks to fill in. Do we have all those blanks? Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to use this as a practice, and I'm going to go steal this graph because we'll check. There we go. Order, send to front. It's good practice for the test. And for those of you guys that missed the quiz on Friday, it's good practice for that quiz that you need to make up. Okay? Now pause really quickly before I totally go to this. Did I just close it all? No, I didn't. The directions are use the zeros to graph. Those were the directions. So in homework, you didn't have to necessarily fill in all of these blanks because it wasn't asking for all of them. I'm just using them all to help us as far as the kids who still need to remember what's on the quiz and still need to take it. But we are going to end in a graph, and that was kind of their point. But hold on, looking at the book really quickly. Why was I showing a difference between 38 and 40? 38, what form was it in? What form is that in? Do you remember the name for it, just in case it shows up on the test? Okay, standard form. To be honest, this one's probably standard form. It's not helpful form, but it is standard. What's this one called? Huh? That's what that one is. That's what that one is. Distributing is what you would do in close. Intercept form. Yes, but it's actually not showing the y-intercepts. It's actually, if you were to like specify it, it's actually showing the x-intercepts because the zeros of the function are the intercepts of the x-intercepts. Oh, I think that had something to do with the bonus. Anyway, good job, those of you that got it. This is in x-intercept form, but we've also called it in the past, you guys are just like, duh, factored form, because it's in factors, right? What's the difference between 38 and 40? This one is factored, this one is not. So for those of you guys getting ready for the quiz to take it today or tomorrow, remember, there's going to be one problem on the quiz where you need to factor it. Where you need to factor it. If you need to use an x, totally fine. If you need to take that to a table, totally fine. And it will work, -6, +5. Use a table, that's totally fine. Because you will end up with what you should have ended up with, bless you, with guess and check. Just a few of you are actually trying to make this jump, and it's going to be okay, it's going to be good as long as you foil and make sure you have it. But remember, the goal is not, the final answer is not the factors. The factors are the way to get there. Anyway, Andrew, you had a question on one that was already factored. So we're going to stop stressing about factors. I was just reminding the people gone on Friday that they will have to factor one in order to do it on the quiz, and it's 1 out of 2 problems. All right, here we go. Quick reminder. Good review for the test, answering a homework question, and good review for the quiz for those of you guys that were gone. What's the very first thing? It's in the perfect form. What's the very first blank I should try to fill in? X-intercepts. And x-intercepts, I always want to make 2 points, both with zeros. What numbers go inside? Opposite these guys. Good. -1, -7. Good. What's the formula that you were able to use on the quiz on Friday? And I gave you an automatic point just if you wrote the formula down, or you would do it. Yeah, P plus Q all over. 2. And what are you solving for? The axis of symmetry. And that's the exact same guy that goes in the beginning of the vertex. So who are my P's and Q's for this problem? -1 and -7, which would be -8 all over 2, which is -4. Which is also, there we go. Do you guys remember in section 8.4, it was as basic as finding him and filling in him? But then we also have to do a lot of plugging, not a lot of plugging in, because we already have negative 1, 0, and we have negative 10, 9, 8, 7, 0. We only need one more point, right, Everest? We only need our vertex to be able to swoop, there it is. So we need to plug in negative 4, right? So G of negative 4. Now, guys, you're going to get back tomorrow. Hopefully everyone's taking it. I might have to change the version of the quiz. But you're going to get back tomorrow, and at the latest, tomorrow is Wednesday. People that need to make up the quiz, the sooner the better, because I want them to see their quizzes to be able to study for the test, if that makes sense.
What's the test?
Thursday. Because we're done today. We'll review tomorrow. If worst comes to worst, if people haven't taken their quizzes, we might bump it to Friday, but then we're even more behind. We'll see. We'll see. We're going to prepare for Thursday. But on your quiz, a lot of you are going to see me, or my note is plug in, because you totally forgot that stuff. We take our negative 4, we plug it in, and when we plug it in, we just have to do PEMDAS, right? And we're just looking for the y. Good, Jerry. Negative 3 times, that's another negative 3, times 3. Ooh, this is a rough one. Andrew, this one's not going to fit on my graph so well because it's going to end up being 27. Ugh. Which means it's going to be way up here. That's 10-ish, that's 20-ish. I did the best I can. Does it make sense, Jerry, from what you said a second ago, that this is a concave down problem? Does it make sense that it's a concave down? Why? Good. The negative means it has to be down. And I know it was kind of awkward. The 27 probably even should have been higher. But once we find that point, well, now we can fill in our domain and range real fast. But Max, the other question.
So you plugged in negative 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I plugged in the axis of symmetry, who is also my vertex. Remember, the axis goes right through that.
Okay.
Plugged in. Good. Domain, what do we always get to put? You can write it out in words, or you can do the snazzy R. But yeah, all real numbers. But range. We always start the range with what variable? Y. Good. We already have an x up here in the axis of symmetry. It's a concave down, which means what kind of inequality? Greater than? Less than or equal to. And how high does this guy go? It's always going to be, it's always going to be whatever that one. Do you guys see how there's so many connections? These two are used for that guy, which is used for that guy, which is plugged in for that guy, which is the same as that guy. Are there a lot of connections between these answers? If you learn them, it's just like boom, 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 points, 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 points. You're rocking. Cool. Which is why we have multiple over 100% on the bonus. Here's the bonus. And we also had several A's, which is good. And several B's and C's, which is also good compared to some of the other quizzes. Anyway, guys, we'll get those back as soon as everybody finishes taking them. Andrew, great question. To be honest, in homework, you really would have probably just needed the x-intercepts and the vertex, and then swoop, you would have been done. Okay? You didn't need to fill in all the blanks. All right, guys, section 9.2, thank you for at least having that homework ready to go over questions. I think a few of you might have had extra questions that you didn't ask. So, I mean, the test is coming, so come on in, ask me if there's something in homework you're not understanding. Or once again, those of you guys that missed the quiz, come on in and we can go over like a quick practice problem, or you can ask me a quick question before you start it. Okay, on Friday, we went ahead and, some of you need to catch this up. Remember, we're checking 9.2 everything tomorrow. Let me try to zoom in. Here we go. So those of you guys that were gone on Friday, you want to start filling it in right now. Those of you guys that were gone on Friday, you want to start filling it in right now. Because we already did this. On Friday, and a couple of you were still taking the quiz. On Friday, I had everyone who had this worksheet underline, use the graph. We're solving, yes. We're solving, which is something that we did with Moses parting the Red Sea. Well, God through Moses, remember? If you want to remember what that is, it was factor, bless you, then set, what was that? Let's at least pretend to be grown up. Okay, maybe not grown up, you guys don't have to put that pressure on, but at least out of elementary. Okay, Moses parting the Red Sea before the semester break, which I know, it's been a lot. But we would factor and then set each equal to 0 and solve. There is an old way of doing this. There is an old way of doing this. But the reason that we're ending with section 9.2, the reason I'm hopping into chapter 9, stealing a section and using it, is because it says solve with graph, and we're like, sweet, we've been doing graphs. Sweet, we've been doing graphs. People that finished the quiz early, they got this worksheet, and they were supposed to be trying to get into standard form and then factor. Rearrange if necessary, and then factor. Our goal is to solve. Now, the cool thing that we saw is, okay, well, if it's already in standard form, that's why so many of you guys were thinking that, because maybe even you did that homework, or you tried to do that homework. Standard form, maybe you need to write a note to yourself. Standard form is that ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 if there's a 0. That's standard form. But number 1 was already in standard form. It was already a squared. X minus an x with a 4, a 4x minus a 5 equals 0. It was already in standard form. So we didn't have to do that. That wasn't necessary. So we went straight to factoring. Once again, you could use your x, you could use your table. Once we factored, we said, wait a minute, we can know our zeros because we know our intercepts. And guys, where did I put my intercepts down here? Not at 1, 0, but at negative 1, 0, just reminding you, so many of you switched those signs on the quiz, which was little in comparison, but still messed you up. We switched the signs. It's x minus 2, a negative 1, but we switched the sign. And then this one is positive 5, 0. So maybe some of you, it would help to write that down. But once we find the x-intercepts, they're the same thing as the zeros, which is who we're looking for. We're looking for the zeros, and that's exactly what we have here. The solutions to the answer are the x's of the x-intercept. Now check it. You could also do Moses in the Red Sea. You could split this guy up, equal to 0. Split that guy up, equal to 0. You'll get the exact same thing. So you could do it the old-fashioned way. You could do it the old-fashioned way. Of once you have the factors, setting each one equal to 0 and solving. But another connection is if you have been tracking with it this whole time, you're like, oh, 5 is an intercept and negative 1 is an intercept. Guess what? Those x-intercepts are the answers. Dun, 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 dun. Now, why was number 2 so much harder? And most of you probably are like, please don't let that be on the test. It was no solution, aka, well, this was the tricky part. First of all, there were no factors. There were no factors of 18 that make 7. No nice ones. 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. None of them made 7. So we had like a huge old we don't know because we can't factor. Now, I kind of let you guys know, though, even though you can't factor, doesn't always mean it's impossible. So I kept going and said, okay, we can't factor, stop. And I was like, sometimes there are still answers. They're just nasty decimals, not nice, like whole numbers. And I don't even mean nasty decimals like 7 halves. I mean nasty decimals like 0.12763. And you're like, what's that? But just because we can't factor, we were able to go back to a really old-fashioned formula. So I was kind of reminding you of this way to find the vertex by using an old formula. And so I took my negative b all over 2a, and I plugged it in, because that's how we get y values. So I got my vertex to be, what was it, negative 7 halves, which is negative 3.5, with a y value of, I don't even remember what, it was something messy. Did anybody write down that y value? 5.75. Negative 3.5 and 5.75. So after plugging in, why was the answer no solutions? Not because we couldn't factor, but because the parabola will never hit what? What will the parabola never hit, which is what I was looking for? Not even just the bottom, but it'll never hit x-axis, yeah. It'll never hit the x-axis. And so if there are no x-intercepts, there are no solutions, there's absolutely no way he can equal 0. Okay. That should catch those of you guys up that were gone on Friday. And remember, number 2 was kind of crazy hard, which is why we did it all together. But we still got a graph to show you why the answer is none. Not because this was hard. We're going to learn how to do crazy things like this, if it was possible, in Chapter 9, after this test. But because of the picture, it never hits the axis, so no solutions is the proper answer. But guys, we weren't done with our worksheet, right? And I'm grading this tomorrow, so we want to finish it up. For numbers 3 and 4, can you guys read the directions to yourselves really fast on numbers 3 and 4? When I talk, sometimes I distract you. The directions are weird, right? They say solve using some random method from some random example. Okay, in homework, it's going to say this exact thing, using method 2 from example 3. That's why I put it on the worksheet. I'm going to show you what it is. It's something the book shows that you would have to go find, like a scavenger hunt kind of. And it's kind of awkward, and I don't like that they did that. So I'm going to show you, first of all, if I were you, I would circle, this is what it means. This is what it means. Using the graphs of each side. Now, I'm going to kind of, and you might want to either write down notes on the paper, which I know some of you are doing, and that's okay, as long as you're getting them down and you see their notes. But you can also put it in your notebook for finishing section 9.2. This method 2 from example 3. It's a creative graphing approach, which to be honest, I'm going to show my older kids because it's kind of cool. And it gives you an idea, whereas maybe you wouldn't have had one otherwise. Because in number 2, can anybody just be like, that was gross? Was number 2 a gross problem? Yeah, it was disgusting. Yeah. Like I had to go plug into a formula and plug it in a fraction, and then it was weird and like not even. This might make number 2 easier, but check it. We're going to graph the AX, Andrew, I hear you, shush, the quadratic part, and we're going to graph the linear part, separate. We're going to take one side of the equation and we're going to graph him. Technically, we would do a little, what we call a subscript. It's just like a part of his name, one of the y's, y1. When you get to using a graphing calculator in higher math classes, it's actually going to be like one of the options, y1. And then we're going to graph this one, y2. But guys, what we're doing is we're taking one side and saying you could be a line, and taking the other side, you could be a parabola all by yourself. And we're going to graph them, and what we're going to look for is, look for intersections. Now we're kind of cheating. That's why it's called a creative approach. We're kind of cheating. But if they don't intersect at all, and they won't, the answer is no solution, like that number 2. If they do intersect, the x values of their intersections are the answers. Now, there's one little hard part with this whole thing. Most of you haven't graphed lines since last year with Miss Edelin. It's been a while. So maybe you won't remember exactly how to do lines, which is why we're not going to spend tons and tons and tons of time. That's why there are only 2 of these in homework. I think it's numbers 29 and 30. And that's why if it's on the test, it'll probably be a bonus. So I'm not going to force you guys to remember everything to do with lines. I just want to show it to you because technically if you remember how to graph lines, this could make number 2 or problems like that easier. Ready? Here we go. Do you see that this is that little ax squared guy? Isn't he the squared dude? Okay. So I'm going to graph y equals x squared. A good old-fashioned parabola that maybe you guys remember. He's just 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. We had some of his basic points as a parent function, I don't know, quite a while ago. X squared, kind of like plugging into a table, I graph pretty fast by thinking of 0 squared is 0, 1 squared is 1. So I'm kind of like making a little baby table just to, I don't want to do it there because I'm going to graph that line in just a second. I'm kind of making like a little baby table, reminding myself of who this really basic guy is at -2, at -1, at 0, 1, 2. Squared, 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 squared. And I graph those points. pretty basic compared to some of the stuff we've been doing. But then I come over here and say, ooh, once upon a time, you learned how to graph a line. Okay, I know it's been a long time. And remember, if this is too overwhelming, you can just see it, you can try it, and you can be done with it. It's not required for the test.
Okay.
Do you know which one you start with?
Yes, 7.
The intercept.
Okay.
And Hannah, here's your y-intercept.
6 over 1.
So we can go to 10, 9, 8, 7, and we can graph our intercept at 0, 7. That's our intercept. And then we can say our slope is 6 over 1, which stinks. I'm in all sorts of trouble, right? But wait, can't I also go backwards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and negative 6 and a negative 1?
Yes.
And I could have also done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Positive 1?
Ooh.
I know, it went off the graph.
Wow.
My question is this line going to intersect the parabola?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, we just saw the intersection. Isn't the intersection at negative 1?
Somewhere there, yeah.
Right?
Right.
Okay, so we have an intersection at negative 1. And here's the struggle. Where's my other intersection? Other? What? There's another one? What would we have to do to find it? Okay. Is there another one? Yes. Where is that other one? If we had a huge piece of graph paper, we could keep on doing up 6 over 1, up 6 over 1, up 6 over 1, plug in 3, plug in 4, plug in 5. And guess what? We would find the perfect intersection point. But if it's off the graph, well, we're going to kind of get in trouble. But let me show you what we just did. Ready? What we just did was another way, a creative way of, well, otherwise we would have had to move everything on one side to get into standard form. Then we would have had to factor, which maybe some of you see would have been x plus 1 and x minus 7. Then we would have had to either figure out, oh, my intercepts are, or set each one equal to 0. Is negative 1 an answer? Yes. The question is, what was easier? Graphing the parabola and the line and saying, where do you meet? Okay, it was easy here. It was going to be hard there. Or getting to standard form, factoring, and finding your intercepts. I don't know. I don't know which one's necessarily better, because you're not going to always have a huge piece of graph paper, and without that, it's really hard. And some of you don't remember lines too. But to be honest, in messy ones like number 2, this might have been easier. Now, hold on, wait, we need to finish the worksheet. That way you guys get 100% tomorrow, right? So hold on, let's do it one more time. Here's a line. Y equals 8x minus 15. Here's a parabola. Y equals x squared. And if you guys notice, I already gave you the graph to this one. And maybe you know why. X squared is easy, right? 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 4. There he is. X squared was easy. What would I have had to have graphed first for this one? Negative 15. Would negative 15 work in the little 10 by 10 I've been giving you all chapter long? No.
No.
So I gave you a graph because I'm like, uh-oh, this isn't going to fit. And then our slope would be, Jerry was saying 6 over 1. This one will be 8 over 1. Up 8 over 1. This wouldn't have fit on the graph so good. So I gave you a graph. But here's my question, guys. If we can graph a line and a parabola like shown here, where's the answer? Is there a solution? Not at all? Should you be asking yourself? Is there an intersection? Aha! So there is an answer. Now, are there 2 answers? No. This one crossed through once, and it's about to cross through again if we just kept going. But how many times does this one cross through? Just once. And that one time, I think, uh-oh. It's really hard to see my picture. Can I see one of yours? Adrian, can I borrow it? Let's see. It looks to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Nope, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, these dots are awful. 9, 10? 510. There we go. Beat it 510. How can I double check that I'm right? I'm going to say x equals, remember, just steal the x. X equals 5. I'm going to say x equals 5 as my final answer. This one, x equals -1 and 7 were my final answers. How can I double check I'm right? Plug it in. Has it been too long since Glade commercials? Plug it in, plug it in. We want to plug it in. 8 times 5 minus 15 and 5 squared. What's 40 minus 15? Please
25.
be 25, I think so. Got it. Okay. Once again, guys, kind of crazy. Not the only way to solve these problems. It is just a way. And the book is saying, like, hey, it's a thing. And to be honest, it could have made number 2 easier if we had done it this way instead. If you guys are curious, though, you could have also gotten this into standard form. You could have rearranged it to be x squared. I'm going to get the 0 on this side because I want x squared to stay positive. I don't want to subtract it. Minus 8x plus 15. Remember, this was what we were practicing earlier, so I'm not rehashing it. I'm not doing it all over again. But we could have factored that to be, I think it's x minus 5 and x minus 3. Minus 8x plus 15. This one shows there should have been 2 answers. 5 and 3. I only see 1 intersection, don't you guys? You guys are wondering. I'm struggling a little bit with this one says there should be 2 answers, and I think our graph only gave us 1. Maybe I graphed the wrong graph a little bit, but I don't think so. What's wrong, Isaiah? What do you see?
2.
X equals 2?
Yeah. 10 times 2 is 15 minus 15 is 1.
Oh, but 2 and 1, x. I see what you're doing, but the problem is x can only be one number at once. No. Bummer, right? Andrew.
Okay, I can go back.
Hang in there, just because I want you to get numbers 5 and 6 to have 100% on this tomorrow. Okay? But the nice thing is 5 and 6 are super easy.
Don't we end at 30?
Yeah. So I was saying hang in there so we can finish that. 5 and 6 is real easy. What? The graphs are already there. Now, my lines didn't show up so good, so in that way it's hard. But do you guys see what the directions are for numbers 5 and 6? What do they say? Okay, so if we're supposed to approximate, well, I think maybe those of us on Friday might have done this one real fast, but they're basically telling us this hits, but it doesn't hit in a nice place, so don't even worry about factoring. Don't even worry about that line trick. It's going to be like a decimal, so approximate what the decimal is. Approximate where the decimal is. So what I want you guys to do is, in trying to find the answers, you're going to have x equals 2 different answers. Remember, you're looking for the x-intercepts. The x-intercepts are the zeros. And you're just trying to see how close you can get. The x-intercepts are the zeros, and you're just trying to figure out how close you can get. So, on the left one, on number 5, where does that seem to be hitting? And you're going to give some sort of decimal. Is it before 1 or after 1? Oh, this is 2. Did you guys notice that? Hold on, you're going by halves. So 1 would be, yeah, right? 1 would be here. Wouldn't 1/2 be here? Does anybody else think it looks kind of like 0.4? Yeah. It looks a little bit before 1/2. Now, where would the other one be? This is 2, this is 3. It's not 3. 2 point, maybe 2.5. It looks a little bit past it to me, doesn't it, G? Yeah, let's do 2.6. You're just eyeballing and being like, kind of close. You're just giving a decimal. You're trying to say, okay, it's 2, and it's 2.5, and it's a little bit past. Or it's 1/2, oh, not quite, a little bit before. So what do you guys think for number 6 to finish off to get 100% on this for tomorrow? 0.4, oh careful, 1 is right here. 0.9, 0.8, yeah, 0.8, 0.9, something like that. Do you see the lines are rough? In the book, the nice thing is the graphs are going to be super precise to help you. But yeah, it's a little bit past a half, but it's before 1. How about this one? 7, you can do 7.5. It might even be like 7.2 or 7.3. But the nice thing is, so far, we don't have to solve for these by hand. Eventually, next chapter, after the test, we will. But in homework, the last ones, 43, 44, 45, 46, you're just looking at graphs and being like, okay, I think I have an idea, okay? Andrew, if you want, you can go ahead and get out of here quicker than everybody else. We'll let you leave first. Tonight's homework is just 9.2b and have all the 9.2 ready. Worksheets A, B, homework A, B. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, bye guys. Quiz people, come find me. During lunch. Or grade 7 if you have grade 7 PD. Bye guys.
Yeah.